going to
gambling,
times,
and we
Jared,
were
we put
leaving,
it
he
in time.
stops and fills it up, and he says, we're gonna see how
So do
fast
you want me
this
to
will
start
go.
sitting down here then?
And he chickened out at about 107.
And then after this?
Yeah.
Yep.
From Hinkley
Oh,
to
as
Forest Lake,
soon
we
as
burned
that's
through
done,
26
you're up.
You're
towns.
official.
Just making sure.
You're official.
You start voting and everything.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
We bring in groups of 180 from all across the country, Canada, and we spend a weekend with them. We teach a lot of different programs, I'm part of the department. In fact, a few more, till 6 o'clock. First meeting in February, and that is the election of officers. So we have two positions, the chair and the vice chair. So the chair is looking for nominations for the chair. If that makes any sense.
I think you're a very good chair. I think you should remain chair.
Per Commissioner Young, does anyone else want to put forth a candidate? Second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anybody else for vice chair? Hearing none?
That's exciting.
So with that,
The
we
EDA did was to determine a preferred alignment for Headwaters Parkway, and then also look at opportunities for infrastructure phasing. So the ideas, the analysis of whether or not the city would like to have language in its code to a binding feedback, the city could at least have enough justifications to say this is a premature subdivision per our subdivision language. So all that is being recommended in the ordinance is moving that code section, not changing the parameters for which a premature subdivision would exist. The next section of code that's being contemplated to have allow a developer to have flexibility when building the infrastructure. So what essentially we would be doing is looking still at the acquisition of the land that would be needed for half the roadway or such at the time of the other road would end up needing to go in.
We're gonna say that you don't need to, we're gonna make you build 2 lanes to our full depth, base, overlay, this kind of accommodation to happen?
No, because none of them are on collector roads. What we are finding, or collector roads designed in the 4-lane, turn lane capacity. Collector roads that are being built at the fullest city standard are community roads and not roads that are serving exclusively the neighborhood that is right there, and that we are asking the development community to build.
They go away, and the city is time. And I'm just not sure how, to get there, except to hold folks accountable as development comes. We used to have a tool, and it was struck down by the courts. But that was an effective tool, and it allowed the city to do the construction when.
That then, again, we would be putting that into our capital improvement plan for reconstruction through the standards city.
Would not.
Yeah, I mean, he might not be, he's gonna be paying for more than just half at that time, because probably more than half. But it's a tool to get you closer to where you wanna be. I see.
Every city have lots more rooftops than I understand the desire of the council to do this. I'm just concerned about the long-term effects.
Certainly a better step than asking that first developer to, hey, you gotta pay for the full 4 lanes.
hearing first? Or
Yeah. Yep.
None of that changed, they're just a final say. It would be a recommendation.
Through all this. This Chapter 150 establishes really the shared procedural framework that applies to all of these chapters of Title 15. It doesn't rewrite every process in each chapter. It consolidates the procedural elements that are repeated across chapters into one administrative umbrella. And I'll go through some kind of examples a little bit later about what we run into as staff interpreting the code, and if we have a hard time interpreting the code as it's written, then I can't imagine somebody who isn't surrounded by it. Currently, these shared procedural elements are embedded in multiple chapters. Completeness and submittal language is in 152. Variance and PUD procedures are in 153. Floodplain procedures in 154. And each of these chapters contains similar but not identical language governing notice, findings, appeals, and authority. What we're proposing here, these discretionary decisions, which largely come to this body, like variances and certain permits, are made by the planning commission or council, as would be required. And those big legislative actions remain with the city council. And all that stuff, that's really set for a lot of the land use decisions that are within the code. It really helps us eliminate the ambiguity about decision pathways. That's really one of the things we're trying to accomplish as staff, so that we can better support and be able to plan meetings and execute the code as it was intended. So I wanted to go through a quick example. So this illustrates this, but there will be sections as we go into the ordinance that we're taking one half of a chapter, or one half of a section.
Because a lot of times, you know,
One of the things, and help me with the name of the subdivision that's being twinned now.
Chestnut Creek 2. Next to, there's not enough parking in a community, the number one complaint is you didn't notify enough people, right? And that's just, we hear that no matter the type of application,
Absolutely.
the neighborhood it's in. One thing that I've seen in some communities that they will, they'll have their standard state statutory requirement or their city code requirement, 300 feet, 500 feet, 1,000. But we don't always require them early enough. And so meeting, right? Just an informal, hey, developer, meet with the neighborhood. That's a great opportunity to engage the neighborhood early on. And then you can have that public hearing later from the council of how do you want us? How often should we be engaging with the community? What should be formal? What should not be informal? What should be a developer's responsibility? What's the city's responsibility? Or some of those policy-based questions that we'll be talking through even before we come back with more boost code section updates.
Yeah, larger cities tend to have neighborhood associations. And those neighborhood associations are very active in engaging the community and getting community-based discussions about things that may change or ordinances or development or
I like that though. There's
Yeah.
some real.
I was sitting here thinking, like, man, how can we codify? Like, hey, let's not just do newspaper. I know that that's like what you do is you put your public hearing in the newspaper, and I'm glad we get one here every Thursday that I can read it. We get one here every Thursday that I can read it, but I mean, who's really? And it's being able to utilize these public comment periods in the communication fashion that more people are using now than always being beholden. Still doing those statute requirements of making sure that we're having these public hearings, but how do we scratching the itch right now, because they are some of these developments are so part of a regional development. A lot of the Headwaters Parkway stuff being kind of falling into that, a lot of the Lake North Shore stuff falling into that. How can we create those maybe formal or informal kind of groups to be able to have one-stop shop, send this out to all these people because they're a part of this. HOA in Chestnut Creek was very much that role, and they got a lot of folks out, and that's not in every neighborhood. So how can we codify that is one of the questions that we'll be asking as we go forward. It may not be within this boost, but it's definitely forefront of some of the weaknesses that we've seen coming into this fresh of kind of how can we maximize this when you have a neighborhood meeting and 0, 1, 2, 3 people come up.
saying this area is up for development in 3 months it's coming, or whatever it is. I don't remember what this sign said, but I said,
And that's really something we've seen in our peer cities codes is there's them saying that you have to put a 3-by-3 foot sign and it's got to be readable from 50 feet away, and that there's a public hearing or there's a development so that people driving by can see it. And as we were kind of really brainstorming this in December, that was one of the things that we were just saying, like, how can we better notice this? Is a sign the way to go? As a
Honors that make more than the 80% AMI, slightly more than 100%, but as I think we've previously discussed here, our AMI is still pretty low, and so these are still lower income families.
Isn't our AMI around 74,000 for single?
I don't know the
I
exact,
think that would help the commissioners if they knew.
I think that's the county, but I thought the city was closer to 55.
well, we would probably be utilizing changes. We're working right now, like even in the access from gowashingtonmn.gov or by a telephone number, and we can get that online. They can bring you anywhere in the metro area or now through this pilot program locally on Tuesdays and Thursdays for a few hours.
Questions?
I had about 15 flyers and I have given them all out.
Well, their flyers, we learned earlier this week, had an inaccurate QR code, and
We'll be there the 28th. It'll be the last meeting you see me that I'm not a frozen popsicle. Wish us all luck.
Questions of Stephen? Michael, you've been a little quiet this evening.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it that way. Nothing for me.
members or more, and so if there's 3 or more gone, then we start to run the risk of not being able to have, we can have a meeting, we can't take action.
Which really means we don't have a meeting.
Good, thank you.
And Chair